Sitting in for Christina this morning. DRC for October 24th, and our first item is Corso Chevy Chase in Down County with Down County team and applicants here.
Good morning, everyone. So this is the DRC for Corso Chevy Chase, the site plan, preliminary plan, and forest conservation plan. For anyone listening that's not aware, this is for the creation of a senior living community at the currently developed property at 7100 Connecticut Avenue and Chevy Chase. We previously saw this for a local map amendment project, so a lot of things are really hammered down at this point. We have some comments or some things we're working on since then regarding site access. We've been in ongoing conversation, and we have a meeting scheduled for early November to discuss that. But in terms of the project before us today, some of the general comments, bigger comments included the request for interim and overall plans to help clarify aspects of the project, such as circulation, fencing, planting. Regarding transportation, of course, we mentioned the site access. There were also a few bike parking clarifications. And environmentally, we also wanted to clarify the evergreen screening, which are not applicable for mitigation plantings, but are still required for the binding elements. So just clarifying that, making sure that all the requirements are met. Certain easement clarifications as well. And from the town of Chevy Chase, we had comments regarding the sidewalk along Thornapple Street, the width or having passing zones. Clarification regarding the materials such as lighting and building facade materials. They wanted to see some examples if possible of that. And they also had comments regarding the evergreen screening as well. So with that, those are the major comments. I'll pass it off to the applicant. On the screen, I have the open space plan. Right now, our online system is down, so that's just something we can speak to. I can also switch to the aerial if that would help. So I just had a limited selection of plans to be able to pull up without the online system.
Yeah, e-plan is great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for all the comments that we received. There was some confusion on our part yesterday about whether we were getting more comments or not, or whether these were all the comments. And
You got the e-plans comments though, right? Not just his summary.
yes, the
Like the-
e-plan.
Email with
Yeah.
little notes on them.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. So what we got are the comments.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
There was confusion because there was a bunch that said incomplete, so.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
So
no,
it
so
was like, in other words, so we were like, is this all, or what are we gonna do at DRC?
totally fair. So one
Yeah.
of the, I'll just speak for us, and we were given a reminder that we need to complete our tasks. A lot of us finished our comments, but like we're so worried that when e-plans goes away, there's this thing that says like, you cannot undo this. And so like we get a little nervous and we leave it to the last minute and then forget. So yes, you're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yes.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm glad. It's one of the reasons why we come in person. We
Comments, and I'd be like, oh,
We
yeah.
got comments. So I just wanted to make sure that that we got them.
Great.
So just a couple of questions again, as you mentioned, we've been working on this for a long time, and we put a lot of time and effort into the LMA and making decisions and trying to do everything the best that we could. So I think we've got a very good start to the site plan process as well. Just a couple of things. Wanted to clarify about Thornapple Street. Obviously, under the town's jurisdiction, and there was a request in one of the comments that that the town provided writing its opinion on it.
Mhm.
Is that they did submit a letter, and I want to know if that is sufficient or if there's something else that specifically you need addressing.
I potentially missed the letter, so let's
Yes.
take a look at that.
Yes,
Okay.
it's, here, I can-
Yeah, if you don't mind. The only other thing too, just to keep in mind, I was telling this to Todd when we were coordinating on comments.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you're aware that in August, ProAg,
Look on, actually, the
the other side.
it's this one right here.
Okay, great. So, the public right-of-way access guidelines were finally passed by the US Access Board, and they have some stricter rules about how wide the sidewalks need to be. So they accept a 4-foot sidewalk is fine, but then every 2 feet, you need a 5-foot like passing zone.
100 feet.
Yeah, 200 feet. No, 2 feet would be dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, 200 feet. Thank you. I misspoke on the thing last time. Anyway, so anyways, so the town would be kind of like on the hook since we're touching the sidewalk and this, we're here. I think the town should consider coming into compliance with ProAg so that they're not at any sort of liability there. So I think we may need to look at what, I want to coordinate with Todd to make sure that this is exactly what he wants and that there isn't anything else that he wants from you all. But yeah, I will take a look at this and get back to you.
Okay, let us know if you need something.
And so I haven't read this yet, but
Yeah,
looking at this, like on their letterhead, this is the kind of thing I'm
Yeah,
looking for.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the format is good. I just need to double check.
Yeah,
what's there.
fair.
Cool.
Good. One of the other comments, or several of the comments, had to do with phasing of it, and you know, it's our intent to do the phases concurrently, but you just never know, and who knows what's going on right now in the economy. But one of the challenges we have with phasing is it means the way that Revit works and the design platforms is you have to, if you've designed it one, you have to kind of start over and rip apart everything and then start from scratch. So it's a considerable amount of work to do solely a phase one plan and solely a phase two plan. That being said, is there some way that we can show on the plans, you know, a demarcation line or notes to show what is going to be phase one and what is going to make it clearer, as opposed to having, because we're not going to build something twice. So is it that we can show, we can be clearer in how we show it? I mean, that's kind of a conceptual, acceptable way of doing it.
Yeah, so as far as the plan go, the notes and any demarcation will be helpful if there is a possibility to fade things back, with the line work bring certain phases up on a sheet so we know what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And also in the SOJ, it could be just even a bullet list of this will be done in phase one.
Yeah.
These are apps for phase two, and so those two can speak.
Yeah, for the time, what we've done is a little bit more generic phasing line, and I think if we make a more detailed phasing line that goes to which sidewalk is there and which sidewalk isn't, it'll be much clearer as to what we're doing.
Well, one of the reasons we made those comments, Grant, is like you said, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty in development right now. And your phase one is what would be the back end of the
Yep.
site. So we need to understand what phase one looks like without the phase two buildings there.
Yep.
You know, if you're thinking of, say, for example, just the gatehouse is going to be built partially, the attachments are not going to be there. We need to understand what that looks like, because no one really can with certainty say when phase two will,
Sure.
what's that arrival sequence. And the phasing comments, I think, are more about landscaping and fencing rather than building, which is
Yeah.
where Revit complexities come into play. So
Yeah,
that's what.
landscaping's done in Revit too.
Okay, well, we do need to get some idea, unless you can, you know, with certainty say, hey, we are happy to have a condition that says in a set time, we're gonna build phase two, which I don't think you would want to do.
No, that's.
So,
No, and I understand you don't want us to like build stairs up to a door and then the door, you know, those stairs are sitting there for years and there's no building there. So I understand. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
entry sequence is really important,
Yeah.
and what it looks like in phase one, if these are just building pads along Connecticut.
Yeah.
How are you gonna treat them in the interim? Are you staging there? Are you landscaping them? You know, even if it's a temporary, like we just need to understand.
Okay.
What this building will look like when phase one's complete, what project will look like when phase one. So that's where we are. And these may not have to be as detailed as the formal, these can be supporting documents. They don't have to be the main documents that are put into the certified set and are binding and all of that, but we just need to have an understanding of what this will look like when the first
Yeah.
half of the site is not built.
That's fair.
The landscaping plan is a binding element, so we might need to keep that.
Well, I
We need to
yeah,
do
I think that's
separate reporting.
I don't think we spent that much time on the detail of exactly which landscape elements are in phase one and phase two.
We did include a plan in the architectural set that showed the phase one plan, but it was not in landscape
Yeah.
set. So I think that's part of.
Which has a lot more detail to it, and I think it'll be a lot clearer if we go through and we do that and show the area.
Yeah, just trying to understand, you know, where's the fence in phase
Yeah,
one?
right, yeah.
What are you planting in phase one? What does the entry drive look like with that partial gatehouse built and all of that? So
Okay.
that's where that's coming from.
Understood. There's some real technical comments on forest conservation, which we'll continue to work through, so I don't see anything that we really need to discuss there. And I know we're working through with SHA and we're having this meeting on the site access, and I think we've got at least a reasonable approach to that, and we'll continue to work on that as we go forward. And when we update our plan, we will update it with what is current in that process, that option, that concept, and going forward, knowing that it, may evolve in some way. There was a comment about submitting a statement of justification for alternate compliance of 2 driveways within 300 feet.
Yeah.
And our question is, can that be included in the SOJ, or does it have to be a separate statement?
That's what I was wondering.
In the SOJ. Okay, perfect.
And then I would point to your fire access approval for Marie, because that's probably the reason for it. So just like reference that, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Internal sidewalks. There was a comment about 6 feet of internal sidewalks.
Just a recommendation. It's our best standard. So we're
Okay.
just putting that out there. For
Okay.
your knowledge.
Okay, fair.
Yep.
We will review in light of that recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bike parking, long-term bike parking.
Yeah. Figure this.
So the building, from a building permit standpoint, is one building. And from a post office standpoint, is all one building. So I'm trying to determine what the requirement is. Is it a building code requirement or a zoning requirement? What's the
Sure.
definition? And I mean, the goal is to make it as usable as possible, right?
Right.
That's the goal.
Right.
But I want to understand what the real restrictions are in code language, and so that we can review it in light of that.
Sure. So, I mean, I think that the zoning code did not anticipate your building style, right?
Yep.
And I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the fact that like on the plans, I totally understand what you're saying, because Marie has talked about this as well, how like you really only have 3 buildings, but when you look at some of the notes, it'll be like building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it goes like that. So I would argue that like if by building permit, it's really 3 buildings, then that's I do not put bike parking in the gatehouse. That is not, it's not necessary. I mean, let's be reasonable about it. I would encourage you to explore as many opportunities to put bike parking throughout so it can be accessible, both to your residents, but more likely to your employees. That's probably more who would be using it, and try to take the intent of the code in as best as possible. So,
We are providing 3.
oh, you are, I only found the 1.
Yeah, we are providing 3, so we might just have to highlight where.
You mind? Yeah, because if you could, because it was both the long-term bike parking, and also I couldn't find the short-term parking. I'm sure it's there, but yeah, if you could make me a little exhibit that, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then details on the types of facilities, like this is oftentimes are on like the landscape plans, like are you using U-Rex or using retail racks? And if those were again on sheets that I couldn't find, forgive me, there was a lot because you have a lot going on. But and then in your response to comment, you can be like, hey, dummy, this sheet, like that's totally fine.
L27 and lower part.
Perfect. Please and thank you.
Okay, cool. Just want to, we are working with DHCA on alternate compliance for NPDUs. We're having some very good conversations with them and with HFC, and getting that program squared away, and something that I believe DHCA is working to regularize. I think we won't be ready for their formal regularized compliance path for senior housing, but I think they're using this kind of as a pilot program to make sure that we get something right and make the economics right for everybody. So
Yeah, Summer's involved with this. We've had multiple conversations.
yeah, no, and they're excited about it, and so is HOC, and I think it's win-win-win for a lot of people. Those are the questions that I had.
I think just on forest conservation, there were lots of, there were lots of comments on there. We have to go through them, look at the individual trees that you pointed out. We just didn't have time, so we might need to offline contact you and talk about that.
My question was, and this might be the town of Chevy Chase question, so it might not be relevant, but was the materials, is that like photos of representative materials. We're still exploring the specific material choices, but we have like ideas of what it's gonna look like. It's just photos, what we're looking for, like,
Typically, you call out the
yeah,
material.
we call it the material, but like what specific shade it might be, we're still,
Yeah, I would show photos at this
Yeah.
point and say this or that, or this or similar.
yeah, that's great.
It's brown, white stones, not fiery red, you know.
Let's stop our team.
Yeah.
Yeah, just see on the record, teasing.
No, I mean, we got a lot of good comments and we're ready to go and we're gonna turn around as fast as we can.
One question I had was, in phase 2, it looks like you guys are building the phase 1 garage, and then you're gonna have some punch-out panels and extend the garage. And that's where I think some of our questions about phasing are coming in, is like how much of the landscaping along Connecticut and frontage and all of that can be put in now versus can't be put in now, because you might have to dig a hole later. So that's also where we are.
Yeah, and it's likely different for, just as you see on there, building strategies for building E and building F.
Yeah.
Because building E has existing buildings there now,
Mhm.
which need to be removed, whereas building F does not. So it's a little bit easier on F than it is on E, but we will make notes and describe what is gonna go on in that area.
Okay. When you send us the phasing information, just know that we have to cover the scenario that you do phase 1 and
Yep.
the world implodes and there's no phase 2. And what does that look like? And make sure that that is an acceptable condition.
We will describe it, show it as best we can. It's important for us too, because if it doesn't go forward, it's the front door to the entire project. So we're good aligned, I would say,
Great.
in understanding.
And as far as the town question, Todd Hoffman from Chevy Chase is online, so if you have further questions for him, but I think that Atul's answer does go towards what he was looking for there for the images.
Mr. Todd.
Morning.
Yes.
So just wanted to make sure you get any questions, we could bring them up now. If not, we can move forward.
Yes.
Sure. Just we look forward to participating in the site access meeting. I believe it's going to be November 2nd. I'm not sure what time, and reviewing the revised stormwater management concept. Those are two important items for us. With respect to the Thornapple sidewalk, we are requesting a 4-foot ADA compliant sidewalk, which I understand would meet or would comply with PROAG, as long as there are 5-foot passing spaces at intervals of 200 feet maximum. We're asking for that primarily, solely, because we know that street trees would be impacted, likely removed if a 6-foot sidewalk were required per Complete Streets design guidelines. And it also means a 4-foot sidewalk with, we believe, could be installed with 5-foot passing spaces that would not impact the street trees, and it would also allow for consistency of streetscape aesthetic. Since we have 4-foot sidewalks all over town anyway, and we have no intention of increasing their size to 6 feet. They're well-established sidewalks, and so from a streetscape aesthetic standpoint, we think it's more consistent.
Hey, Todd?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Katie. Do you mind updating your letter with that direction for item 6? I think that would really help us out, because I think that addresses that issue. Would that be okay?
Item 6 in our letter says that we are asking the applicant to install a 4-foot wide ADA compliant sidewalk, right?
Right. And then if you could just also add the passing zone areas in compliance with PROAG, I think we can put that to bed.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I put ADA compliant because I didn't really.
Oh, sure.
I wasn't going to cite PROAG.
No, I think 4 foot is.
4
4
foot
foot
is
is the new
ADA
PROAG. I
compliant.
think 4 foot is the new standard, not 3.5.
4 foot with 5-foot passings.
You
Intervals
make a good point. That's fine. I mean, I would recommend calling it out since this is new.
You can do it. No
Yeah,
problem.
I'm being a pain. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. And then finally, the evergreen buffer was mentioned by Saquon, and yes, we appreciate and support and very much like the evergreen buffer that has been put of course, it's a required binding element that the applicants designed on the south side of the property. We understand that doesn't count towards mitigation plannings. There was a DRC comment about replacing some evergreens, specifically arborvitae and Norway spruce with native canopy trees. I don't know if that's related to the required evergreen screen or related to this evergreen screen because I don't have access to E-plans, but the town wants the applicant to retain that evergreen screen as proposed and plant mitigation trees elsewhere on the property. And then finally, Grant, I'm not sure if it shows on the plans, but another item that I have just wanted to ask you about is the temporary garage location and specs.
Yeah,
And-
we should show that on this.
That would be helpful if you could let us know where that might be located and what specifications, general specifications of that garage space would be. That would be very helpful.
Sure.
That's all I had.
Back to the evergreen and the southern side, the importance is that there are non-deciduous type trees that are protecting the southern properties from view.
Right.
That's the goal. We've got to find something that works for all of the constraints, but it's that in the winter it's not just see-through because that's the kind of thinnest part of the site.
Yeah, that's right. The binding element says non-deciduous screening, and that's what you've provided. We support that. We appreciate that and like what you've done there, and understand that hopefully that can be maintained and will be maintained as per the binding element.
We'll come up with some species that work for everything.
Just to be clear, mitigation trees, you're basically cutting trees that provide shade. So we wanna, do something equal or better than the shade that it was there. So that's why we wanna you to remove the arborvitae because the way how they grow is just conical. So they won't provide shade.
I don't know if any shade trees are non-deciduous. So we're very much supportive of this evergreen screen. We do not want that removed. That's very important to us and our residents
I think we're
adjacent.
talking about two different things. So
Yeah, I think so too.
the fencing is one thing and the mitigation is a different thing. The variances.
Okay, so we'll look at it again. There's a lot of technical stuff in there. We've got to get to the bottom of it, but
Great, thanks.
Question, are you providing a PUE along your street frontages? 10 foot?
no.
They need it at least along state right away.
I think there's an existing PUE.
It's already been widened.
No, public utility easement. So we usually require that. Are we, Sam, are we requiring that?
Along the state is up to them to decide what they want.
Okay. I think you need to plan for it unless you've heard otherwise, right?
I think there's space for it, given how much setback there is. I know for these types of buildings, the utilities don't always require them because they have their own.
Right, but it's not just for you guys, it's for everybody else in case, so. We need, if you do not provide one, we need a letter stating that the utilities agree. But generally, we require that.
Okay. Okay, so we'll add that to our list of follow-up regarding the right of way there for PUE potentially. So with that, we have our meeting on the books for early November to continue site access discussions. I'll get to the schedule and I'll follow up with the email so you have it in writing as well. Based on the acceptance date of October 4th, the first resubmittal is due on November 8th, with the final due on November 28th.
The second one, you're saying?
Yes, the second resubmission on the 28th of November. And agency letters will be due December 18th, leading towards the planning board date of February 1st of next year.
Board date,
Board date, yes,
February 1.
February 1.
Speed it.
As possible.
I like your attitude, but.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If you have any questions, we'll be in touch and work with you. Appreciate it.
Perfect, thanks.
Next time will be at
Today, filling in for Molly on this, Malene Jackson, she's the lead reviewer on this application. And I'm filling in today for her since she's out. This is a subdivision for 2 lots. One is proposed without frontage and the other one fronting on Trevilla Road. I know that the applicant has received all our comments in advance, so I'm going to turn it over to them in just a second. I just wanted to briefly convey the gist of our comments. And I guess the main comment is, per the subdivision regulations, when you propose a lot without frontage, you have to demonstrate there's no other options to provide frontage. So in this case, there might be an option to provide a flag lot, and we have to just explore and demonstrate if that's not feasible and for what reasons it's not feasible. We suspect that the reason might be because the second lot becomes too small in the rear and not buildable, but we need to have that demonstrated. So perhaps an exhibit showing us how this could develop with a flag lot, or whether, or better said, why it would not be able to be developed with a flag lot. I think it's going to be really helpful. We have also included 2 sketches as part of our comments, trying to illustrate this notion, how this could be developed with a flag lot and sort of the disadvantages of it. And then another layout showing what you're proposing here with some minor tweaks. So let me share that in just a second. So this first sketch that we have included as part of our comments shows how the flag lot could be perhaps developed on this property. And then our estimates is that it's going to squeeze the rear lot so much that you can't really fit in a house while meeting the some of the setback and separation requirements in the code. But of course, we didn't, we didn't do exact calculations or dimensions, so you would have to verify all of that. And then the other sketch that we put together, sorry, here we go, shows the lot without frontage in the rear with some minor tweaks. So the first thing we did was we were hoping that the unit in the front, in the lot with frontage along Trevilla Road could be moved forward so that it aligns with the existing home to the left. And then we're also suggesting that the driveway could access the garage in the back of each unit. So instead of the garage being in the front, can we tuck the garage in the back so that the driveway kind of runs along the edge of the property to the rear of the unit, which would allow the front door and maybe a porch and maybe some other features to be in the front of the units a little bit more prominent than just the garage door and garage access. So that's the gist of our comments. I know that you have received a number of other comments as well, and we're here available to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll turn it over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Sandra. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about, so I'm glad you brought all that up. Dave McKee with Benning and Associates. A couple things I need to point out is we're in the R200 zone here, and we have a property that's only 111 feet wide. So if we provide a flag lot, then the front lot actually becomes less wide at the building line than is required, 100 feet. So that's the reason. That's the reason why there's no flag proposed.
Gotcha.
So that pretty much addresses that one. The other problem with the second sketch, which we actually started with something like that, and then ended up talking to zoning at DPS about the EBL matter on this property. So what I was hoping was that they would ignore the EBL because you can see that house on the corner there. The house is way back from the road. And it's a non-standard lot. It's a parcel. It's a grandfathered parcel, I guess. I think that's the case for both properties on either side of us. But the answer I got back from DPS was no, we needed to count that as part of the EBL calculation. And that really skews things for us quite a bit, as you might imagine. So I think we're kind of thinking along the same thing you were with the pulling the house on the front lot forward, but the EBL doesn't let us do that. We have 3 houses. We come up with an average of 75.5 feet. And so the front lot has to be back that far. So that's the main thing those are the 2 things that drove the plan pretty much. And then the other thing was trying to balance out the building envelopes between the 2 with the 80-foot separation, that's required with the stacking lots there. We can definitely adjust the back lot, make that a little bit bigger. I saw that in the comments. Pull that line forward. I don't know that we don't need to adjust the building envelopes really, but we could move that line forward and make a little bit more front yard. That wouldn't change the plan on our end very much.
So Dave,
yeah.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. And as far as the EBL, just so that I understand what calculations you went through.
Yeah.
You're saying that you use this existing house to the right and the existing house to the left, and then you just calculated the average to see where.
I used there's a third house that's off the sketch to the left.
On this side.
It's a corner lot, part of that development that goes back there. But I used those three houses to develop the average. And those first 2 to the left are very close, but then the third one, to the right is so far back. So our average ends up being 75 feet.
Okay. Do we have anybody from DPS zoning on the call today?
I could go back and get them to confirm that, for the record. But I do have conversations with them.
Hi, good morning, Sandra. Can you hear me with my mic? Hello?
I can hear you. Who's?
This is Matt Mikowski, zoning, Montgomery County DPS. How are you today, Sandra?
Good. How are you, Mark? Thank you. Thank you.
This is Matt. This is Matt Mikowski.
Matt, sorry.
It's okay.
Thanks for jumping on the call here. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about this EBL discussion, because we're looking at this lot that's being created as being sort of aligned with the existing lot and unit to the left. And now that we're adding another house in the back and the rear with a second lot, it almost feels like that this unit or house to the right where I'm pointing, it almost feels like it's an outlier. It doesn't really relate to either one of the 2. So can you help me? Can you walk me through this EBL discussion?
Sure. The established building line calculation is a method for new infill lots. And we're aware it's based on calculation relative to existing houses, coming up with that average 300 feet each direction. That's a standard for zoning. As far as the zoning rules are concerned, we abide by them. We don't make the exceptions to there being the established building line required for new infill projects.
Okay. So there's not such a thing as like an outlier that doesn't kind of follow.
If you're looking for an exception to that, that's not something that zoning would do. We review what the zoning code is. I think what we're moving towards is possibly a variance for this in order to have an exception for that new required front setback for the zone. So I can look into this further, but that's where the comments are based from on established building line. It's not our authority to make an exception to that requirement. that's probably how we'll proceed from there.
Gotcha. No, this is helpful. Yeah, I was just trying to understand how it's calculated and what are the provisions that we have available to us, but gotcha. Thank you.
Or thank you. I'll see if I can post a link for a hyperlink for the EBL just for everyone to have a quick access on how it's calculated.
Thank you. I
Just for
appreciate that.
the science behind it. Thank you.
I'll look at it and I might circle back with you after if I have more questions, okay?
Oh, great.
Appreciate. Thank you,
So,
Matt.
so given all of that, the best way to calculate, there are different ways to calculate the EBL. There is a house on the property, but it's currently set too close. So it doesn't meet the standard, so we can't use that setback. Even after we tear it down, we can't use that. Sometimes the code allows for that. The other option would be to use the average of the house on either side. And then the other is to go 300 feet or to the next street, either way. And so that's our best option. We have 3 houses within that window that we use that gave us the best EBL we could come up with, which is 75.5 feet.
So is this the first time you've been in this building?
Okay.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to just discuss briefly was the cross-section comments from Brett Brown and Mr. Whalen from DOT. Each of them, spoke to the bike path. We have a bike path already in front of the property. Travilla Road has been improved, widened, bike path put in across the front of this property and other properties. It's 8 feet wide. And our property currently does not have a curb and doesn't quite meet the width for pavement section. So our plan proposes to widen the road, put in the curb and gutter, but keep the bike path, the way it is, which is 8 feet wide. And I think that is okay from what I'm hearing in the comments, but I do see comments from Brett suggesting that he would like to see 2 sections submitted back. I don't know what exactly we accomplish by doing that, but I guess the one comment was provide a section with an 8-foot wide side path, and the other was provide a section with a 10-foot wide side path. Just wanted to have a discussion about that.
Sure, yeah. So this is just kind of echoing some of the suggestions in both Complete Streets and the Bicycle Master Plan. So as I alluded to in my comments, the Bicycle Master Plan calls for 11 feet, which obviously is not going to fit. 10 feet is usually our standard based on Complete Streets. And that technically should be enough to also fit in a curb and street tree. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to see one that shows the 8 feet, that shows the existing side path, and then one that would show a 10-foot side path to actually accommodate some of the street trees that we're suggesting.
This comment.
Okay. So I guess then the result would be if we end up showing a 10-foot can work with whatever green space that leaves us, then we'll probably end up going with that, right?
Right, yes.
Widening the existing bike path by 2 feet, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Miss Rebecca, how much are you widening the road from?
A couple of feet, I think, and putting in the curb and gutter, not a whole lot.
Is there any existing, are you going to connect to any existing curb and gutter?
There's curb and gutter across the street. There's no curb and gutter on our side currently until you get to the intersection with
Because there's no inlets either. And there's a drain that you show that you're removing, which drains, I assume it's water, water draining from the road into the tree.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Well, I don't think there's a whole lot of water, if any, getting in that. That's an old storm drain that I think was there before the road was improved, and they put in that inlet when they did whatever work they were doing there, putting in the bike path and all that.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a private, pipe. Billy and I have talked about that a little bit.
I don't see how it can be a private pipe if it's in the county right away. It's clearly draining water from the road into the into there. And so there should have been some kind of easement if it's draining
There's no easement. No. I
Okay.
think it was just there, and when they ended up giving some right of way, part of it ended up in the right of way.
Yeah, so I'm concerned about that. So
Mhm.
I think we need to take a look at that.
Are you thinking we might not do the curb and gutter and just leave things the way they are?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I think we need to discuss it further.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Billy Whalen. I asked for storm drain comments for the existing and proposed to show that if that pipe is removed, that what's existing out there can still work. But we can revisit it if we're considering possibly not requiring curb. But that pipe, and I was also trying to look into whether it's public or private. And I know, David, you were also trying to find more information on that. But if it's private, it's going back and draining into that existing lot. So.
Yeah, it is, but there's very, very little. I mean, you can see it's very flat through there, and there's very little water that would get in there. But yeah, we'll take another look at that.
Okay.
I'll be your chaperone. Okay.
Somebody has their hand up.
Okay.
I guess speak up if your hand is up.
Oh, okay. Maybe my name isn't showing. This is Mark Etheridge. Hey, Dave.
Hi, Mark.
Take my hand down now. I wanted to bring this up because it's going to be an issue with us getting the stormwater done for this thing. And I don't know if this is going to the planning board or not, and whether or not we have to have a concept for sure ahead of that or not. But as you know, there's your geotechnical report shows very shallow groundwater out there. And you did your testing along that southwest property line, not up in the higher areas where you're proposing the only practice that might have a groundwater impact. That rain garden isn't really what we're going to be looking for. Rain gardens aren't under drained filter practices, and it's really, really questionable to try to put something like that in somebody's front yard where it's really on the verge of destined to fail, So we're going to have to do something else, and we're going to have to find some way to show that there's a legitimate rationale for believing we can do full stormwater out here if we create this new lot. So maybe look at wet swale along the driveway or something like that. I think we're going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board with the stormwater on this one, though, to try to get some legitimacy.
I understand. Yeah, I'm sure you noticed I did show an under drain for that rain garden just because of that condition you're referring to. So
I saw that, but you have to understand these aren't
Yeah.
designed as filter practices. They're designed as
Yeah.
infiltration practices, and they just don't. And even with the under drain, you're putting it in an area that's probably going to intercept groundwater, and it's going to be leaking on the adjacent properties constantly, causing a nuisance drainage issue. It's just a very questionable project from a geotechnical standpoint. We're going to need more information geotechnically, maybe. And we're going to have to, maybe if you want to get Joel to get a meeting together with all three of us and talk about the stormwater, we're happy to do that. We're going to have to get creative and find a way to say there's some legitimate way to do this for us to be able to support the subdivision.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Just want to throw my 2 cents in there.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And Mark, to answer your question about planning board action, it is correct that the board has to act on this application because they're proposing a lot without frontage.
Okay.
And if they propose a flag lot, also the planning board must act on this application, not the director, which means that we will need a stormwater management concept approval prior to going to the board.
Thanks for that verification.
Okay.
Dave, if you discussed this, the issues of storm drain and the private pipe and all the runoff versus public flow with DOT. If you want DPS to be part of it, we'll be happy to do that. That would facilitate this project when it will go through permitting at the.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Sounds good, Sam. Thank you. I'll keep you involved in that.
So, Dave, just for my own clarification, second clause section and the questions that were raised, can we get some, I guess, clarity on next steps? Because I'm not clear. What are the next steps?
The next step would be for us to get the storm drain analysis. Any comments there addressed, and the stormwater concept approved. Those two things, have some comments for fire and rescue, which we can take care of. But I think the plan itself won't change much because of the things I brought up before. So we just have to address. I think we're looking at this point to get the letters from DOT and stormwater management, so we can get ready to move on to the board.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Also for the cross section.
In the cross section, yeah.
Do you have the information that you need, or do you need to get more information from us? Because I know Rebecca mentioned something about the closed section versus open section. Rebecca, is that on our court to discuss before we get back to Dave? I'm not clear. Maybe it's.
No, I think that we can I think we'll just need additional information to figure it out, and like the stormwater management and that drain there, and just storm drain analysis. So we can just continue to work on that.
So based on what they give you, or
they'll have to give us more information.
Okay, so Dave, do you know what information you need to give to Rebecca and Billy?
I think I do. Yeah, I have some comments from Billy that I think will answer some of those questions.
Okay. And then Brett, is there anything also that you need to provide Dave, or do they have everything from us?
Just the cross section, I should be good. Everything else is just standard comments.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
This is DRC for 9312 Persimmon Tree Road. That is in the Up County area, and we have the Up County team here and some applicants here. So, Sandra, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Sandra Pereira. I'm the regulatory supervisor with the Up County team. And I'm filling in today for Malene Jackson, who's the lead reviewer on this application, but happens to be on leave today. So this is a concept plan application for 4 lots and for 4 detached single-family homes in the Potomac Master Plan area. And I know that all the reviewers have provided comments in advance of this meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to you for questions and discussion. I think that I'll just take a minute to go over two layouts that our team put together illustrating our comments. Those are also uploaded in ePlans for your reference, but it's super quick. And then hopefully we can discuss some transportation frontage improvements as well as environment as part of the discussion. So in front of you is the proposal, the concept plan application as submitted. I'm going to pull up two illustrations showing how we can perhaps consolidate access for the 3 proposed lots into a shared driveway. We're just trying to look at ways to consolidate access to make it a little bit more efficient, a little bit less disruptive of the sidewalk or the surrounding roads, and it just seems like it could work. So one option is up on the screen now, and it shows the 3 lots being accessed off of E Hall Road to the north, and then having internal private driveways leading up to lots A, B, and C. And this eliminates altogether access on Persimmon Tree Road. The lot layout is pretty consistent with what you have proposed. So you'll see that on both schemes. The lot layout is similar. And on this one, the other alternative is to have a shared driveway for lots A and B on Hall Road. New Hall Road, and then a separate access to lot C off of Persimmon Tree Road. But still, another point that I wanted to make is that the access is providing, the garages are in the rear of the lot. So the access, as you can notice here, goes towards the back to the garage. So that our goal is to have the front of the house with porches or with the main entrance to the house and have that kind of facade towards the roads, and the garage in the rear kind of hidden in the back. So that's the other thing I wanted to highlight on these sketches. And with that, I'll turn it over to you so that you can ask any questions you might have.
Well, Mr. Horgan, our civil engineer, will basically kind of walk through some of the comments in the DRC notes there. But I will make a more an anecdotal comment with regard to your comments about the shared driveway, because Mr. Shirazi certainly understands the value of trying to minimize the amount of the points of friction on the street and trying to minimize the number of driveways. But I in the last year, I've developed a speech to our clients that Montgomery County must be getting too overbuilt, because I will bet that right now in my office, we have probably 10 cases of fences encroaching across property lines and plantings across property lines, or disputes about how shared driveways should be used. And candidly, the people who are going to be buying these houses that are $1 million plus a piece are just not usually want to share driveways with anybody else. And I have to say, whereas we used to be able to do that quite commonly, it's there's a resistance to it now. There seems to be a lot of problems also. And in fact, in this neighborhood, although a teak tells me he does not like to have houses with 2 driveways on them. That's not an uncommon feature on the houses on Newhall Road. So our general inclination is to resist the idea of sharing driveway simply because of prospective problems. Mr. Horgan's pretty smart, though. Maybe he can come up with some ideas of how to make, what your ideas are and what are. But I know that there are buying customers are not jumping for joy at that idea. Patrick, you want to go ahead and pick it up from that?
I think you're muted still.
We can't hear you, Patrick.
That's because I'm muted. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so Patrick Horgan with Husker Consulting with the concept plan together. First off, thank you everyone for taking the time to meet with us today and discuss this project. I know the format of this is best suited for just throwing our questions out there. We don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to kind of rattle through some stuff. Apologies if it seems I'm being short or rushing. Just want to make sure we're able to ask all our questions in this time. So, question I didn't have written down, but just looking at those 2 layouts that you showed there, is the one thing I'm curious is the porches and the wraparound porches around that. Is that I haven't seen that before as a requirement. Is that just a preference? Like to fit the neighborhood feel, or where's the porches coming from on kind of the wraparound on the corner and the other 2 lots?
It comes from our urban design team and design excellence principles and goals of our department. It just creates better streetscapes. It emphasizes the pedestrian environment, and it just creates better communities. And so it's just something we advocate for. We think that it's a win-win situation for everybody. You get a better product, your customers are more satisfied, and we also achieve more of a pedestrian environment that we're trying to achieve.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so first couple questions I have are kind of based around the right-of-way improvements and dedication comments that we received. So first one, hopefully is just a quick yes or no. Persimmon Tree Road, currently 60 feet, 80 feet in the master plan is an arterial road. Just wanted to confirm that would then require a 10-foot dedication along our frontage to fit in the improvements and to keep the center line the same versus a 20-foot to meet the full right-of-way.
So I can answer that. It's Chris Van Alstyne. We would want as measured from the center line. So that'll be half of that requirement. So if it's currently 60, we need the 10 feet to make 40 feet.
Okay, awesome. And then there's a couple other comments I saw referencing either bike paths or bike ways along Persimmon Tree Road. I was looking at the master plan again this morning and the bike plan. So I just want to confirm, understanding that Persimmon Tree Road is not an existing bikeway nor a proposed bikeway based on the master plan, and that we wouldn't be expected to install bike lanes or anything along that road. Just wanted to confirm that.
No, according to the bicycle plan, there's a side path, which is a bike facility. So that would be along Persimmon Tree Road on the application side. So that would be an 11-foot wide paved facility.
Okay, so I mean, maybe this is, I know there's been some revisions to the master plan. I'm just, well, what am I looking at here? I'm looking at the roadways and bikeways master plan, I guess, fold out map. Is that the most current reference I should be looking at here?
So refer to the 2018 bicycle master plan.
And that shows Persimmon Tree Road as a bikeway.
Yes, and then that shows it as a side path. So it's not on the road, but it's in lieu of a sidewalk, it would be a side path.
Okay, so an 11-foot, I guess. Okay, instead of a 6-foot sidewalk.
Correct.
And there needs to be a 9-foot clearance between the edge of pavement and that edge of that, correct, for the street buffer?
As a minimum, correct. And that's assuming the open section.
Yes, okay. All right, we'll have to look into that. It's a little more width than we were expecting there, so hopefully that fits in there. All right, the other one, I'm gonna switch to Newhall, a couple of questions on that. So in the comments, it said Newhall was a neighborhood road within a 60-foot right-of-way requirement. It's currently 50-foot. The question was, I know there's a neighborhood street and a neighborhood yield street. There's two classifications, and the yield only requires a 50-foot right-of-way. I think my understanding from the applicant is that in general, it kind of today operates as a yield street in the sense that there is parking on both sides, and typically traffic has to yield to one another to get through. So is there the possibility for Newhall, or should Newhall be classified as a neighborhood yield? Or what would be the distinction between those two road classifications?
If I can intervene for a second, Chris, because the dedication of right of way for that lot where the existing residence is located will mean that he will probably have to shave off part of the house in order to meet setback requirements and or to give land to other lots because they'll start getting too close to the minimum lot size. So we'd prefer not to have to dedicate on Newhall. And when we took a look at the definitions and criteria, I was going to ask Rebecca, because I know that you each have commented on it. Can we put together a pitch to you as to why we think this qualifies more as a yield street than a neighborhood street? Or have you guys made that as a binding determination?
I wouldn't call it a neighborhood yield street. It sets a bad precedent for us because then basically every existing roadway, people that operates like that. I think it's more of the size, the amount of homes on the roadway.
17.
Right, so I'd have to look at what it is. But the other thing is like what you've proposed on both Newhall and Persimmon doesn't allow for a sidewalk to be placed on there based on the grades. So we need you to show that a sidewalk can be placed, if not now, in the future, or a shared use path in that case.
Okay.
And what you're providing right now is not adequate enough space.
So we'd end up with a sidewalk on as a PIE on our property?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
Because to me, you know, you're creating these lots, you're adding additional lots, and to me that you should be able to work with it. Your starting point should be the existing dedication, and you should be able to fit those lots in. If you can't fit those lots in, then maybe you can't have.
Well, then that's why I went back to say, we thought there was a good argument as to why it would not be classified as a lot that would record dedication, but it sounds like maybe that determination's been made.
I'd have to take a look at the roads, and I don't know.
Since this, I'm gonna suggest we leave it this way. This is concept plan review.
Right.
I mean, we have some time after this before we prepare a preliminary plan and file it, and maybe try and show you what our arguments are and or come up with a solution to address that issue without the dedication. But dedication basically is a big problem for us.
So
That's not what
if it's a master plan roadway, if it's a master plan roadway of 80 feet, we need to have that 80 feet.
Yeah, right. But I don't believe it. I mean, I think this determination been made based on your new road criteria is not on the master plan. That it should be 60 feet.
I'm sorry if I may jump in. So Persimmon Tree is 80 feet and we can accommodate that dedication on that side. There's no problem there. The problem is with the new hall that's asking for 5 foot extra.
So usually for open section roadways, it's if you almost, because complete streets really doesn't address open section roadways, we kind of go back to the old standards that we need that additional right of way so that we don't have a swale, so the edge of pavement, and then we have a swale and somebody runs in there. So the swale has to be a certain width and it has to have certain depth of bottom in it. And so you need to show us that you can accommodate that within the right of way. And if you can't accommodate that within the right of way, we want the additional right of way.
Okay, if I could, I guess, comment on that. We did, there's a section on the detail sheet on Newhall, and what we have shown now on the plan is a 5-foot shoulder, and then a roadside ditch with street trees, and that does fit just right within the right of way. So I think we can make that fit within the 50-foot.
There's no sidewalk. There's where.
That's what I was. Right. That's what I was going to get to. So if the sidewalk is also going to be required, kind of the follow-up question to this discussion to me was, does the sidewalk have to be located within the right of way, or can it be located within the 10-foot public utility easement or another easement along Newhall?
That's a special exception. That's going back to the design exception. Sorry, not special.
Yeah.
Design exception.
Yeah, right.
That we'd have to take a look at and
Okay,
review.
fine. Well, I think the dialogue, you can see, we're trying to figure out a way to solve the problem without having to give 5 feet, and we have the time to be able to address that.
Right. To me, you've created, because you can't accommodate the existing the proposed right of ways that are required, which are 60 feet is actually less than what we had asked for an open section. It would be usually 64 or 74 feet. So, so you need to prove to us that things can fit in, and we accept that.
Go ahead, Patrick. That exhausts, I think, that subject.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, there was this is different than the right of way, the dedication. There was a comment about the lots not being rectangular, and I kind of want to discuss that a little bit. So, I mean, things could be revised. Maybe they end up being rectangular, but I just wanted to, and I can understand why that is, certainly preferred, or maybe the preference of the county when looking at adjacent lots. But I wanted to know if there was a specific requirement in the subdivision ordinance, or if there's a shape factor equation. I saw some counties have that we need to meet for these proposed lots, or is that kind of just a comment, and just noting that they're not rectangular? Then I'm talking about lots 1A and 1C.
Right. Patrick, do you know who made that comment?
That was Moline Jackson.
It was Moline. Okay, perfect. So I think it's exactly what you said. It's our preference to have regular rectangular lots. But when that's not possible, or I guess when that's not most efficient for the property or the shape of the property that you have, we can accept what, we can accept different from a rectangular shape. And I think in this case, it makes sense the way you're drawing it.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. And that was the bulk of the items I wanted to discuss. I did, or I think you already asked it. Oh, another one was on process. I know preliminary plan has been mentioned a couple times, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding. So administrative is the creation of 3 lots or less residential. I don't know how that's, I guess defined. There are currently 2 lots. We're going to propose 4. So are we creating 2 new lots and it's qualified as administrative, or are you just looking at the total lots and you're saying 4, and then administrative is not an option for this proposal?
It's actually the total of 4 lots that you're creating. So that would be, that's the number we're looking at.
Gotcha. Okay.
Patrick, there is also a comment about phasing of the development. I don't know if you saw that comment.
Phasing?
Yes, it's something that it's kind of critical down the road, not so much now, but when you pull building permits, it's going to be a little bit critical, because depending on the order that you pull building permits, it will affect your established building line. It could skew a little bit what you're allowed to put where. So I think we are suggesting that you add a note to the plan. I can't remember what we said, but to add a note to the plan about the phasing. And I see some nodding on the table here, so I think Jody got that.
Actually, I missed it, but the client got it, so he.
Okay, so you know what I'm
Yeah.
referring to?
Yep.
The way you pull building permits has to be on a specific sequence, or else you might not be able to build those houses. Okay.
In those locations,
This one.
yes.
Is that just because the established building line is looked at that moment in time? So if one house is built and the others aren't, then it changes the calculation?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
The established building line is gonna be the average of the lots surrounding it, the houses surrounding it. So when you add a house here, it's going to add to the calculation of the established building line.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good to know. All right, so those are the bulk, those are really the topics I wanted to cover. So I kind of asked the questions I wanted to. Jody or Hamid, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or any further questions you had on this?
Yes, thanks, Patrick. So one minor discrepancy in the comments from the transportation folks. So both actually county transportation and area transportation are recommending Newhall as a neighborhood street. But one is talking about a 6-foot buffer and the other one is talking about a 9-foot buffer.
So 6-foot buffer would be when you have closed section of roadway. A 9-foot buffer is basically to accommodate the swale.
Okay.
And you want to swale on Newhall.
Okay, and then on Persimmon 3, one is talking about a 10-foot side path and the other one is talking about an 11-foot.
So we were talking about this 10 versus 11, and Chris, you said 11 or
So
10?
11 is what the bicycle master plan says is adequate for two-way bi-direction passing. So that's the minimum for that best case scenario. So that's what we aim for.
I'm not sure if we recommended installing them or not, either of these, but we want you to grade out the site for that in case when we would in the future.
I mean, at least from planning, we do want it built. Our perspective is get it built. So what happens following that? We hope it gets built.
Did I answer your question? Yeah, more question?
No, I think that was all.
We have one, we have at least one last question.
Actually, about out of time.
The last question.
Yeah, this is an easy question. All you have to do is nod your heads up or down or sideways. What's of interest to us is that one of the houses lives in one of the houses, the other property is under contract. If we don't think we can achieve 4 lots on this property, it is not economically feasible to buy the property to build 3 houses. So what we'd like to do is walk out of the room with a sense of the comments from DRC that you can file a preliminary plan of subdivision with 4 lots and blank. We're not going to recommend approval, or we'll take a look at it, or we think it can be doable. So whatever feedback you can give him will help him make his business decision. And I would say the only thing really that I've heard that's an issue is the width of Newhall and how we treat that and accommodate all of DOT and transportation planning's issues. I think the rest, I think we can work out. So any feedback you folks can give us so we can walk out of the room and know what to do next.
I mean, I think that we have to take a look at the road again. Let's figure that out.
Okay. That's
I
fair.
think your statement is accurate, Jody. I think from all the issues that I heard today and during our previous discussions, I think that's the main thing to figure out is the road dedication. I think the rest is all pretty minor.
Well, I think I need to point out for stormwater management, we have not discussed that at all. And we would have to see a reasonable stormwater management concept approach to be able to support the subdivision. So I don't know what the soils are like. I don't know any of that stuff. So all the layout stuff is is good, but I don't know that I could walk out of the room saying, I'm going to support this when it goes to the planning board, because I don't know that there's a supportable stormwater concept yet.
Good point.
Understand. Yeah, that's fair enough. Sure.
And similar, I think that also needs an NRIFSD, right? I don't think you haven't approved that NRIFSD, so that also is
Right.
obviously needed.
Yeah, no, I realize there are unknown things that haven't come up yet. We can't ask you for opinion.
You can comment on those.
Understand that. Sure.
But
Who was that? Was that Tom speaking?
That was Mark
Etheridge.
Church
Okay.
or DPS.
Oh, we got the head guy on there. Impressed.
Anybody else on this one? Okay, I
Okay.
think we're good.
Very good.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so
No,
much.
no, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
It's the learning experience at Belcree Road in Mid County. If you want to start, or Amy, whoever's ready to begin, go ahead.
Great. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for submitting a concept plan for us to review and comment on. I'm Amy Lindsay. I am the lead reviewer on this plan for Mid-County. So while this is the applicant's meeting, I just kind of want to start off with a big picture of what our major issues were. The first is that this will have to go through a preliminary plan amendment. The previous preliminary plan did not include anything like this in the APF findings. So that will be important. The second major issue for us is access. You're showing access off of Belpre Road, and this is we're not certain we can support that. Access really needs to come off of the existing development. There's a lot of language in the master plan on this, and it's just a major safety issue. The only reason that existing curb cut was allowed to remain is because there was a single family house there. But other than that, we would have had that curb cut closed. So the third real issue from our standpoint is the layout of the facility. Right now, you've got parking in the front and on the side, and just it's not particularly efficient parking. So we would want parking either at the rear of the building or on the side of the building, but definitely more efficient with your circulation sort of minimized. We don't allow stormwater management ponds, so definitely the stormwater would need to be integrated in with the facility. And we would want the building pushed up to the front BRL, so it would have more of a presence on the road. So that's just a quick overview of our major comments, and we'll turn the meeting over to the applicant now to ask any questions.
Thank you, Amy. Sue Lee Cho with Bregman, Burbert, Schwartz, and Gilday on behalf of the applicant. STNL Development on behalf of the Learning Experience. Thank you for that brief summary, Amy. And we have our whole team here today. In particular, I have Will Zide of Grove Slade. And we too, the reason we brought this concept plan forward, was because of the access issue that you focused on primarily. And we did not bring this concept plan forward in a vacuum. We did our due diligence, and we are, frankly surprised by the comment that we've gotten on the access, because we did meet with DOT, and the guidance that we received from DOT was that the access for the proposal should be, pushed as far west on the lot as possible for those safety reasons. And we are on the same page in terms of designing an access point that is safe. And Will can expand on what he looked at to guide the team in terms of the location. But this site, we understand what the original preliminary plan approved, and that it will require an amendment. The APF analysis needs to be done. All of that is understood. But frankly, the shared access is just not available to this property, to this lot. The church and senior living facility that was developed with the main access drive, they are not willing to do that, and this property is being conveyed separately from any shared access. And the property being along the frontage of Belpre Road, we understand that the existing access is not something that can be supported, and but it deserves its own, an access point and ability to at least develop in a way that complies with the requirements. Now, I can talk about the layout. I think we can take a look at that in terms of efficiency of the parking lot design. But just for explanation, the loop is not for queuing purposes. The learning experience, as we described in our statement of justification or narrative, their policy is not to just drop off and allow parents to drop off the kids within a vehicle queue. They have to walk their child in and sign them in personally and sign them out personally. So it's a security issue that's how they are mandated to operate. The reason for the loop is just to take advantage of the existing driveway that's there for fire access, fire lane, turnaround purposes. We thought it's there. Instead of taking it up, we would just, use it for the circulation purpose for that. At this point, Will, I'd like to have you talk about the access location and what went into the thought process of locating it there.
Yeah, sure. And one additional note on the drive aisle that Sue was just talking about. If we don't have that continue around like that, then we'd have a long drive aisle that just ends, and you have to do 3-point turns to turn around to then exit out. If you couldn't find a parking space, for instance. To get back, you'd have to do 3-point turn and turn around. So this allows continuous circulation through the parking lot. Now, we did meet with MCDOT, and our understanding from that meeting on the access was that where it's there today is too close to the traffic signal to be safe, and we don't necessarily disagree with that. There's a median right on the other side of the road and everything too. So the direction that we were given was to look at the driveway, basically as much spacing as we could get. We did also discuss access from the church driveway at that meeting, but we are unable to do it. If you look south of the screen here, there is nowhere to put a driveway over to this part of the parcel past the church. There's, forestation and stormwater down there that separate all of that area. We did discuss, is this this is too old. So that so this is important though. What's on the screen right now go back to that other aerial real quick. What's on the screen right now does not exist. That driveway from Belpre Road on the top right does not connect down like that anymore. So go to the other aerial that you just had. So this is with the senior building constructed. Stormwater and forestation was put in where that driveway connection used to connect through down. So none of that's available to get up to this top right part of the development.
You do have this connection right here, and there is a potential to run a connection this way. Doesn't the church still own this parcel? Because it was the parsonage associated with the church?
Well, that's true for now, but the purpose is to convey to a completely separate entity, the contract purchaser that's brought this concept plan forward. And it's not.
I do understand that, but the church is a party to A, the preliminary plan, and B, the conveyance of the property. So it's not like the church is a completely disinterested entity.
That is true. I mean, right now in time, correct. But this lot could convey, without any, access right at all. It could, for a time, be used as a residential property and then reconvey to another party who tries to do what we're trying to do today. We're just, timing wise, we're cutting to the chase. I mean, the fact that this property in a future iteration might come back at you. Could be a complete separate owner and have no relationship to the church. But for right now, yes, there is that tie. But attempts have been made to talk about an shared access, and it just has been it's just not an option for us for the church to give. They just denied it. So if you're saying that this project can't go forward unless there's a shared access, then that's the answer. And we're just not going to be able to really do much about it.
Yeah, so this is Matt. I just wanted to chime in and say, as the comments said, there is language in the master plan about consolidating access, similar language in the subdivision regulations. And because of the way the property was subdivided over the years, where there was initially the church and then there was the senior housing, there are transportation impacts that are rolled up with that. And because the senior housing has been there for less than 12 years, it would need to be taken into account for the purposes of a traffic study. And so all the things are interrelated that we're talking about and needs to be looked at in a holistic way. And the comments that we made would be consistent with any other application that would come forward on this property.
And this is Deepak, and this is Deepak here with DOT. I know we talked about this in the meeting, and I was in that meeting as well. And as I said, this access point needs to be discussed with all the agencies. That was one of the reasons why this concept plan was proposed at that meeting as well. We did not commit to, DOT did not commit to this access point as shown. We said we can look at it but it was not a commitment from DOT that this access point would be approved because we did not have, right now, we don't have any traffic studies or any counts at this point to commit to that access point. Our preference was always to have that access point from that church driveway. In that meeting as well, we specifically mentioned that our preference would be to have that access point from that church.
Yeah, and no question, we
I
understood.
just wanted to point that out. I just wanted to be on record as well, because we had this meeting, but that was our preference from day one.
Exactly.
Yeah, so understood. And at that meeting, we discussed, right, that if, I know NCDOT didn't say they approved an access or anything like that, but it was discussed that whatever access would be proposed on Belpre Road would have to ultimately go through traffic engineering and improved, and that it could be limited. Our takeaway from that was that it would be, you could get an access, but it may be limited in the movements that could be included, right? It may only be a right in, right out. In order to have the left turns and the full access, that would need to go through the full. So I guess now we're hearing from the comments that any like even a right in, right out would not be necessarily.
That's agreed, but that's why the concept one plan was recommended at that time, so that every agency, even the traffic, needs to be involved in this. So that was one of the reasons why we requested you guys to put in a concept plan to get everybody's comments in place, for this access point to be approved. And without the numbers, I don't know if traffic is going to approve this as well. So that's the whole point of having a concept plan, to discuss this access point.
Right, but so for the applicant's perspective, in order to invest the resources necessary to actually bring forward a preliminary plan application to fully vet this, is it an extraordinary investment of resources that is just, is wasteful. So I guess what I would like to hear from the group is, are you saying that any access point, no matter how it's designed and how much we put to it, have Grove Slade do the analysis and show that it can be safe and the movement restricted or other options looked at, are you saying any access point that's separate from the existing main driveway, it will just be flat out rejected? That's the level of certainty that I need my client, who's at the table today, STNL Development, on behalf of the learning experience, to hear, because they need to understand which direction, whether there is a hope for this site that we can just further do additional analysis and support to justify it. Is it worth that effort, or is it the site is just not feasible and they move on?
Yeah, so this again is Matt, and I appreciate you asking that question. And one thing that I just want to make very clear is the concept plan is a courtesy process to outline these big issues. We are not saying that unequivocally, no, there's no access. What you're hearing DOT say is they don't have enough information now to give you any level of certainty without the traffic counts and the traffic analysis that goes along with it, whether or not it could be supported. And the reason we directed you to go through this concept plan process is because right at the initial meeting, when you brought this to us, we said, hey, there's master plan considerations here. We have access considerations. Belpre Road is a very, very high volume, high speed, very wide roadway with 5 lanes. We have reservations. We want you to be able to go through this process and hear, is it an issue? Is it something that DOT could support? And I think what I'm hearing is the agencies collectively are saying this access could be problematic and it could be very expensive for you to study. We want you to know that at the outset. That's the benefit of the concept plan, but we cannot tell you right now, that it could be supported based on the information.
Well, can you tell me it will be denied? I mean, what I'm
cannot tell you that it would be denied. No, I cannot tell you that it would be denied. We need more information. We need the TIS that we're talking about. So what we want you to understand here is that this site is complicated. Access will be a challenge, and you need to provide that information if you decide to move forward. What we don't want is for you to have not gone through this process, submit something without the benefit of hearing these concerns from the agencies, and then being surprised because you have a lot of expensive traffic studies to do.
And Matt, so as part of this process, because the analyses to look at the driveway itself, I mean, we can get those right? We can provide those at this stage. Is that what we're saying? And we
No.
can sort of get,
No, because
come to,
yeah, the concept plan really concludes with the DRC discussion today. So there is
Okay.
no subsequent submittal. There's no additional amending this process. This is really to get this is, as you know, it's a free process. It's really just the cost of the materials for the application. And we can provide as detailed information as what's in front of us. And I think we've done that. So there's really no additional information following this unless you want to coordinate with DOT, and I'll defer to Rebecca and Deepak about, what process that might take, but it's not really, as part of the concept plan.
But I guess what we didn't get, Matt, is that based on what we submitted and assuming the additional analysis is in the positive direction, we didn't get any substantive comments on the distance that we're showing, just nothing. So to me, that reads more of a negative, we're not even going to think about, is there a possibility of approval because, we just need to see all the information first.
Well,
Is that
I'll
what?
comment. 100 feet, you can't put a turn lane at 100 feet. I don't know how many vehicles have to actually go into that, how many peak hour trips are provided in that senior housing. You can't do a right in, right out because you'd have to put a median in, which would limit the left turn queuing for into the senior housing. So those are the two comments.
So we have 100 feet, don't we? Do we not?
Yeah, but I don't know how many vehicles have to go into the senior housing per peak hour, so you'd have to look at the queuing for that. We generally don't allow, a minimum is 150 feet for a left turn lane, including the 100-foot plus a taper of 50 feet. If you put a right turn lane, if you put a right in, right out, you'd have to put a median in to limit it, which would reduce your 100-foot left turn lane into the senior housing, which is not going to be sufficient, most likely. But I don't know that because I don't have any information. I don't have any numbers. If you have the access onto the existing driveway that's on the left side, and you use that, it would make it safer, not only for your people, but for the senior people who probably don't want to cut across 3 lanes of traffic to make a left turn lane, to make a left onto the site. So it would most likely, you'd have to look at a traffic signal warrant study and put in a signal and move the ped crossing to that intersection, which is what we talked about before.
Okay, can you say that last part again? Because that's a deal killer as well. You're telling me that there's a potential signalization of the shared access route?
Yes, and I think we mentioned that last time because that was the whole point of consolidating.
We talked about
moving that ped crossing onto the driveway. And so if you move that ped crossing onto the driveway, then you have to signalize that intersection because the ped crossing you're just monitoring to the through movement. You don't have the side streets.
so if I could.
Well, that actually, Rebecca, that comment in and of itself provides a level of clarity that this project won't be moving forward because the signalization of the driveway is as a non-starter. So, I mean, we didn't hear that from Deepak when we met with DOT.
So the discussion at the meeting was that if all of the access, right, if we were accessing somehow off of that church driveway, we would be adding trips onto that, right, left turns there regardless, because that's a full movement intersection. And if we were to do that, we would need to look at the warrants. And if it was warranted, we would have a traffic signal would be required, right? But it wouldn't be a situation where if it wasn't warranted, that it would have to happen anyways. The signal would have to happen anyways and relocating the ped crossing because there already is a signalized ped crossing. So if warrants weren't met, we don't need to provide a traffic signal just to provide a traffic signal. That was the takeaway from that discussion. Now, there is potential, right, that if we add all of those trips at that shared church driveway, that you could start to get into the level of a traffic signal. If we were to have the access as we've shown, and even if that were limited down to say right in, right out, you could put the divider in, the pork chop on the actual driveway itself, then the right in, right out is not going to trigger anything. We wouldn't be adding any trips to the church's shared use driveway, and that would just remain as is.
Yeah, but
So
what I
that's sort
heard,
of-
So,
Will, what
well-
I just heard from Rebecca, is that irrespective of warrants, it would require a relocation of that mid-block crossing, and that in and of itself would require signalization.
But signalization is not only just vehicles getting out of the site, it's also for pedestrians. And we have a Vision Zero policy where we try to make sure that people have a place to cross. And so it might not need, so I
There
can't.
is a place to cross right now, but you're suggesting that it would be relocated to the shared drive, which then triggers a signalization. I mean, it's a domino effect that just results in, this is not
Sue,
viable.
I think just in me listening to this conversation, I think the question that you ask is if a signal would be required irrespective of warrants. And I don't think that's what Rebecca's saying. I think, I don't think that I've ever seen a case where Montgomery County required a signal where the warrants were not satisfied.
I have.
Okay, well, I don't think that's what Rebecca's saying.
Yeah, but
Well, I'd
you
like
also-
to hear from Rebecca, because that's what I heard Rebecca say.
We gave our comments. That is one domino effect that might happen. And we discussed moving that pedestrian to this intersection. And if you move the pedestrian crossing to the intersection, it would have to be a full signal.
Well, what goes into the decision of moving that mid-block crossing?
Well, if you put more traffic on there and then you have to signalize that intersection if it meets warrants, there's engineering judgment as well. And so
No, I know, but what if we don't meet warrants?
You're welcome to submit a traffic study and we
It
can
all
take a look
depends
at
on the
that.
numbers.
But the point is,
It all depends on the number. It's really hard to, we can sit and argue all day here. I mean, it all depends on the numbers coming out of the driveway. Unless we see that numbers, we cannot make a call.
So understood, but I think what we were trying to get to is if we ran all the numbers and a traffic signal was not warranted,
I'm not saying.
Would MCDOT's position be that even though it's not warranted, the pedestrian crossing needs to be relocated here, therefore you need a traffic signal? That's what we're trying to understand. We understand that if a signal goes in, you would relocate the pedestrian crossing, but is the pedestrian crossing going to be pushed to this location regardless of warrants? That's what we're asking.
That's something we have to look at operational wise. What is the number of left turns happening there? What is the queue over there as well? Because there is a signal right now. So it comes down to the operational analysis, how this thing is going to work. So
where's the signal, Deepak? Because there's not a signal at the church driveway.
Not the church driveway. I'm talking about the pedestrian crossing. There's a signal over there. Yeah. So basically, people coming out and making a left, they have to see that signal, right? It's more of an operational safety issue than you're talking about signal water. It depends on the number of trips coming out of that driveway.
That's why we want just a right out. We want to avoid that.
And also people should be able to make that left. I mean, there should be enough storage there. You cannot block that intersection as well when that pedestrian is triggered. So it all depends on the analysis. We need to see that to make a finding.
It would seem to me that pedestrian crossing is more safe by not allowing lefts from our use.
There's no storage space to allow lefts into the senior housing if you put the median. I'm not recommending an island because what people do is they make a left anyway. So what we had requested was putting a median in. And that's where we are at this point. Now, if you want to submit a preliminary plan, we're happy to take a look at it further. But at this point, that's where we are.
And even if we restrict that movement right in, right out, there's going to be U-turns at some point somewhere. Where is that U-turn happening?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a lot of questions out here rather than answers. I mean, you have to show us if it is restricted right in, right out, where is the U-turn happening? Is it happening at this location? That's a hazard.
Okay, well, before we run out of time, in terms of the parking in the front, I can't find anywhere in the zoning code that actually prohibits it. In fact, there are conditional use landscaping requirements, right-of-way perimeter landscaping requirements that suggest otherwise. I just want to understand, is that an absolute, or is that something that we can mitigate with landscaping, screening, other tools in our toolbox?
So I will say, and I quoted the section of the code where parking in a residential zone must be located to maintain a residential character and a pedestrian-friendly street. I think that's part of the comment about locating the parking to the rear to maintain the pedestrian friendly street element.
No, I understand your comment. It doesn't say that you can't have both a pedestrian-friendly street and a well-designed parking area along the front. So it's just not, it doesn't say that. And I'm just saying, are you saying that? Are you saying is it absolutely no parking along the front?
So this is in the RE2 zone, which is a residential zone. And, you are correct. The zoning ordinance does not say in this zone that can't happen. However, I guess from a design standpoint, I don't see what we're achieving by having the parking in front of the building. There is enough room on this site.
Right. It's a 50-foot BRL. And so that in and of itself sort of doesn't lend itself to a siding of the building that's street side. I mean, it just leaves unusable land area. And so it doesn't seem to sort of reconcile in terms of the zone. I understand in your more urbanized zones that you want the building pushed up to the street. But in this zone, doesn't seem to be consistent.
In direct response to your question, there's not a zone prohibition against having parking in the front. It's not the best design, so that's what we commented on. There are considerations for the compatibility because of the conditional use. So our preference would be that you don't put it in the front, but those are the comments we issued.
Okay.
And I would point out that given the master plan recommendations for the reduction of or to minimization or having fewer conditional uses, it called out very specifically in this location, I would think your best chance of approval of a conditional use would be to make it as residential appearing as possible.
And I think we can. I mean, the building itself is quite residential in character. And we'll take a look at the parking layout. We could, but again, the access issue is the key here. And if we can't overcome that, then we can't overcome it.
So this is Natasha. So you're right, like the access point is the major comment here, but then we want to make sure since these buildings are not like really tall, so the closest to the road it is going to have a better presence. So that's why like you're talking about that 50 foot. If you want to put the parking in front of it, you're pushing it even further back. So bringing it as close to that 50 foot will definitely help with that presence of the street. And also like consolidating or having the parking in the rear to not be shown from the street. And like some of our comments, we were talking about sharing the parking, like it's a great share between the church and the daycare. So we would like to see if you guys can minimize and creating that shared parking space in the rear as possible. And at the end, I would like to ask you if you guys talk to the church and what is the reason that they don't want to share that drive? with this new use? Like it makes sense, like the senior housing and the church are sharing a drive. So what is their rationale that they don't want to share the drive?
Michael, Ann, I know you all have investigated a bit. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, they just don't want to, and they are not obligated to share. So, whether they gave us valid reasons or not, that's up to interpretation. They don't want to.
I say thank you.
Okay, anyone else on our team? Did you have any other, Hunter, Amanda, any questions?
Hey, Sue, I had one quick question. Thank you. Might be for Amy, I'm not sure, but Amy, you did make the comment earlier that stormwater ponds are not allowed. And the intent of the concept plan was really more just to show just a general location of where we're thinking stormwater management needs to go. So I know the note says pond, but would you just elaborate a little bit on acceptable above ground type stormwater management options?
Amy,
Sure,
if it's
and
okay, I'll step in on this one.
yes, please. Thank you. That's what I was
Okay.
about to
And
say.
she got that from me. Yeah, we don't really see stormwater ponds anymore. We have an ESD protocol in the state of Maryland that has to be met with ESD type practices to the maximum extent practicable, spreading those smaller catchment areas and smaller practices out around the site. When I see something that says a stormwater detention pond, tells me maybe the people aren't aware of the criteria that we use in the state of Maryland and have been doing so since, I guess, about 2010. So you're going to have to look at your stormwater comprehensively. Having an area for a pond isn't really going to help you very much. There are a number of practices that you're going to have to look at closer to the point of pollutant production, limited drainage areas, before we ever get to anything as structurally designed as something like an old detention pond. That's where that came from.
Thank you, Mark. Do you punt completely to the state, or is this specific to the county?
We're delegated by Maryland Department of the Environment to uphold their standards to their minimum standards, and we have a little more strict standards in the county as well. So we review to the Maryland Department of Environment standards and the standards in Chapter 19 of the Montgomery County Code, but they're very similar.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure. Not at all. Any questions, you guys contact me anytime. I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Okay, I don't have anything else. Michael, Ann, anyone else on our team?
No. Nope. None.
All right, and Amy, was this recorded at all? Okay, I didn't hear in the beginning. If we needed to get a recording of it, how would we go about doing that?
They're posted on the
On
website.
the website, I'm actually sure where exactly.
Yeah, Sue, I can point you to that. They're live streamed and recorded, and so there's an archive on the website.
Okay, I'll look for it then. All right.
Okay, let me know if you can't find it.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, great. Thank you.